be a beaten fight for you.
Is Peter online? Can we tell? Keisha?
Not yet.
Okay.
He could be the side of the.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right.
Pretty good to say, that is strong for
I only told Mary, anyone else?
Ellen danced over very delicately, I just don't know how I would fare. Remember, I'm the one that pulled that thing off, it's. Oh, yeah.
We will go ahead and get started. It's 3:03.
Wait, sorry, Georgia, it's not recording because.
Oh, sorry.
Got pulled out. We'll get that fixed. Okay, you're back.
Okay, we're back. Okay, we will go ahead and get started. It's 3:04 PM. I'll do a quick roll call. Mary Smith. Here. Amanda Cooper.
Here.
John McWilliams.
I think so.
Ellen Elliott. Yes. Peter Whirlin, can we tell if he's on Zoom?
Someone is on Zoom, I don't know if it's Peter.
Okay. And then Michael Richter, we're expecting at any moment, so we will go ahead and get started. Looks like we have a packet in front of us with a memorandum that Dennis has put together regarding the various options and what we want to recommend to the board. We also have 8 responses in this packet. And I think a lot of these people were actually at the meeting. We had 8 people at the meeting. And I think these people were all there, so I don't know if everyone's had a chance to look through those. Obviously, they were just handed out right now. Does anybody have any comments or questions about the meeting? Yes, ma'am. Disappointed, very disappointed in the turnout, me too.
Yeah. It's
To have 8 people there.
People since then say to me, well, what happened at the meeting? I said, gee, you could have come. Well, I didn't know what was happening. It was well publicized.
It was very well
I
published.
know, and it's like, oh, come on.
Okay, so Dennis, would you like to lead us off with your memo?
Sure, I didn't know how the group was going to want to do a discussion of our final recommendations, so I'm trying to set you up for success and also be as efficient as possible. So I thought I would start out by preparing your final report for you in a draft form and setting it up in a way that you could start to discuss how you wanted to make your presentation, leaving the final conclusion as a blank, and then formulating that in the discussion today. And I gave it a shot as to what your key concerns would be by saying you were breaking it down into services as a consideration, costs as a consideration, viability, and I'll explain what that would be. And then you timeline for implementation as the 4 key considerations. I just gave it a shot as what those would be. The discussion here should be, are those what you want? Are there other things that you are going to consider in formulating your recommendation? And then having a discussion as to how you would weight those and what the final conclusion would be in recommending that to the board. So if you want to go through this draft, or if you've had a chance to read through it and critique or give throw out ideas about what you want to change. I guess this is just an open forum as to how you want to have this discussion and formulate a recommendation, or even if you want to do that, maybe you want us to have a discussion. Maybe you want to ask for more information and then we're getting to the point where we have one final meeting after today. I don't know. I guess that's open for your preference. You're the task force, so I'll stop talking.
Well, thank you for this memo, it's very thorough.
I don't have any additions or anything like that after I read through it. I know that there's gonna become, there's a misspelling in here, but I'm not gonna point it out because I know you'll find it.
I did not set him up for that.
It wouldn't be a normal day in my life if there wasn't one misspelling.
Well, once a teacher, always a teacher. I know.
It happens.
He does.
My
that.
friends,
He wants to see it for
You want to know the good? I have these contacts, and these contacts have the bifocals into them, so it's a blurry day for me. That's my excuse.
Sorry, I just couldn't help but laugh.
I think what you did is just fine. I don't have any things to add or subtract. One thing I will say is that I'm kind of confused as the 2 weeks previous, we've got this same one, and the numbers for the year cost, they kind of jump around a little bit, from 633,000 to 630,000.
Where's the 6:30 showing up?
Yeah, because that's just even 630.
Did you hear that?
That's the only number I know.
That is the current right now. The old one as of 2 meetings ago was at 630.
Yeah, that was an error.
Okay,
So when I did the corrections for the open amounts, I made the corrections.
okay. That's all I got then, because obviously it's corrected on this.
The one that was distributed on last Tuesday evening was the correct version.
That's also the sheriff's office, the one with 673.
Right. You'll recall I even had the columns mixed up, right?
Yeah.
That was called a macro error.
Is that your contact, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a lot
We
of,
read all this stuff, you know?
Do we think that there are gonna be other questions from the community that they would want to have information on? Or do you think that these two options are adequate for community consideration?
Did he, in all of our meetings, when people were allowed to send us information after the meeting, as well as what we have seen here, see any other push for another option besides these two?
Dennis, I'll look to you for that because we don't, I mean, we've only
We don't
heard,
get
well,
it.
I've only heard what I've heard here and what I've heard talking to people. I haven't heard of a third option. I know at one point, you even mentioned in the task force meeting or the public meeting last week about some jurisdictions combining their efforts. Like Keystone and Dillon, was it, who combined? And I don't know that we, or did we adequately look at that? Do we feel like, yeah, that's not gonna work here, there's no one we can combine with?
no, we touched on it just briefly here. I didn't go and talk to
Right.
the jurisdiction and ask them if they want
Okay.
to combine, but it's
Okay.
an option, I'm sure. If I was to guess, just guess, and doing this before in other places, that is a long-term goal. If you want to combine with another jurisdiction, if you picked Empire or Silver Plume or Idaho Springs and said, hey, let's get together and combine our police departments. That's something, if we started that today, you're gonna work on that long term, and everybody's gotta come together and figure out who's paying for what. Yes, that's not gonna, I don't think I would say, let's derail these, it would be move forward with these and then work long term and negotiate.
That could be something in the future, and I imagine that could be something in the future if we reconstituted our own police
Of
force.
course.
Yeah, obviously. Okay,
I feel like we gave the community a lot of opportunity to come out and hear us, and the meetings have all been public. I suspect that we might have people come to the Board of Selectmen meeting when the time comes, and that might be another layer of comment that we'll have to take into consideration, but for the purposes of the task force, I think that we've done our due diligence, we had, you know, the forum, we've had 1 million meetings
Mhm.
or 9, but
Yeah, but adequate. We feel like we
somewhere in
covered,
between.
right, and we've covered that. Does everyone feel
And
that
we've
way?
also had
That we've,
website feedback, you can send comments to town clerk. I mean, outside of like door knocking, I don't.
Well, I've definitely had people come up to me specifically to ask questions about it, to have paid attention, that want more information, so I think that. As far as due diligence can be done, we've done what we could do to make sure everybody had opportunities to present theirs. If they've chosen not to up until this point, you'll always have those, but
right, can't.
we've done what we could do, I think.
Okay, and that's great. Mary, any comments?
No, but a question, Michael, how would you summarize? Or if you had to share those comments other than people inquiring as to.
So I've seen a really interesting split in the groups of people that I've talked to about it, and I don't know if it's a justifiably age-based type of, not bias, but from what I've seen, the people that are here with no kids, that are a little bit older, that have come up and asked questions, their priority seems to be code enforcement, seems to be VRBO, backup, stuff like that. It kind of is a little bit shocking to me, the number of people within that group. That when I've brought up things like emergency services or response times for police, brush it off. Are just like, oh yeah, well, whatever, emergency services are what they are, but what are we doing about code enforcement? It blew my mind how much that's a thing.
Okay.
Beyond that, anybody with kids, anybody that I've talked to on that level, absolutely, their first thing seems to be, are we gonna have police presence in town? Are we gonna have quick response times? Are we gonna have officers that are dedicated to the area and actually know what they
Mhm.
know what we want versus what the county wants, that kind of thing. So it's kind of been cool to be able to talk to people about that. One overriding factor that everybody tended to bring up on their own was, I don't care what option we're going with, but you're not gonna ask for more taxes, right? And so it's a very interesting thing, and as I pointed out, you know, all of these are gonna be a little more than we've currently got budgeted for. Every option that we've had presented is a little more than we're currently budgeting at this point. So I'm certain that's gonna have to factor into conversations moving forward, no matter what option we go with. But it definitely was when that was put out, it was, okay, so what's the cheaper option? What are we gonna pay less for in the end?
Mhm.
It seemed to be those were the two big pieces that I took away from it, were that interesting little disconnect between what people were wanting as their priorities and then the very, very strong, but we're not gonna pay more for anything, right? So those were the feedback pieces that I
Yeah.
pulled in from the majority of people,
That's good.
so. Realistic or not, or realism or not, but that's where people are,
Well, it's realistic if that's where we're at.
yeah, exactly, that's where they're talking, so.
Exactly, yeah.
I answered what I could, I did refer some questions and things I wasn't familiar with town specific stuff like that to board members, so back to the board, like, you know, those are gonna be the people that'll have the. Specific answers, especially things regarding what happened in the past, things like that, it was very much you know, I'm pretty new to town myself, so I don't wanna speak for what used to be there, I've seen what I've seen since here, if you have deeper, longer, more in-depth conversations or questions. Reach out to your selectmen that are there that will.
Which is a good answer, and direct them to the website, exactly, so selectmen who are here, have you had any comments from your constituents or the people in your wards?
Not specifically,
Just kind of general
I think
conversation?
people are just kind of riding it out and,
Mhm.
you know, bottom line, you pick up the phone and dial 911, you want somebody there. Whether it's police, fire or whomever, so.
I will add to that I've also been very much. Bringing that up with a lot of the different people that I talked to in a lot of the different places. Not all of this has been commentary that was unsolicited.
Sure,
Most of it was me like, have you heard this is happening? Are you paying attention in town? Do you know we're doing this? Do you want some input? Do it now. Kind of comments.
And that's why we wanted you on the task force, we wanted you to do that.
Be loud, no, I know.
but that's
great.
part of
But you
it,
have to have that reach out,
Yeah.
and if you've got different people who reach different people, let's do it, let's
that's
reach out.
what it's all
otherwise we
about,
can't.
definitely.
So,
Um, any comments from this group on the task force? Any thoughts about, and let me just stop for 1 second, sorry, Rob, you're here as an audience member, do you have any thoughts you'd like to share? Or comments or what you've heard perhaps?
Use your words, Rob, use your words.
That's right. You know, I think it's, there's an overwhelming, feeling that it's not important until it happens to me, kind of thing.
Yes.
There's that. That was really the only thing I was thinking of, and, like, okay. And this is serendipitous, I must admit, but I'm going, I turn out my driveway and we go up Biddle Street towards the Capitol Pride line. This guy in a Volkswagen with Arkansas plates, it comes the other way, beeping his horn going, this is a private road. Just like, I literally laughed and, you know, I'm not only, you know, we just went around the table with Ken staring on this. But I'm also sitting right next to one of the assessors that works in the, you know, town building. And they're adding. This is a private road. This is a private road. And then, so now. And then.
I'm like, we didn't even get it on video, come on, we gotta do it again.
It's gonna be most watch for kids. The guy takes like a mound of mulch and puts it across the road, so me and several other townspeople are about to now take that as our main street.
Good.
Heck, yeah.
What? Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry,
Crazy.
but nonetheless, I think I talked to you today, is that okay if I tell about what I talked about?
Sure.
Oh, okay,
Well, yeah, okay, it's the one.
just, you know, just kick me under the table. But if the sheriff's department wants to have like a sheriff's department, Georgetown department, solely dedicated to the town. And over the long haul, it's less money. What do you guys think? Or would you?
We wanna know how you in the community.
Thank you. Well said.
I think you summed it up.
Is it gonna cost?
They made some very good points. It's hard to argue with that. However, you know, I just didn't, you know, I didn't know if. The upstart of a police, you know, department is, it's very front and low. And the consequential ramifications of. You have a sheriff or a chief leave and you have to go and get a new guy, and the last guy's great. This guy sucks. Now what do you do?
Right.
It's just those kind of things, you know, and I mean, I thought that was just a little bit of foresight on this, just, and you know better than anybody. Well, just with your experience, I know this is a different thing, but I mean, you know, you've seen good chiefs come and go, and you know what the qualities are, and we're not gonna be around.
Even board.
But that same question has been asked and addressed to a degree from the sheriff's office also.
Okay.
Right now, we have a commitment from the sheriff now.
Right.
And what happens when that changes? He's not gonna be there forever either. You know, so I think
That's another good, yeah, I mean, from that standpoint, it's blown.
to me, there's less control in that situation through the IGA than there would be if there's a member of this town staff, basically, that, you know, we have that dialogue with. And going through the interview process and, you know, selecting, you know, the best person type thing.
Yeah.
So,
So I'm gonna take that one for a second, and this is kind of the pros and cons, and since you brought it up. One of the biggest concerns I have is, and this is hard to say, but I think it's something that we have to think through, is. Even if we go through that process, we went through that process and our decision was circumvented. And we weren't, it wasn't unsuccessful because of the process. It was unsuccessful because of extenuating circumstances that made it impossible for the person that we selected to do his job. And I have concerns that what happens if we go through this whole thing, we do this all over again, and it creeps up in my mind, maybe it's a little bit negative or PTSD or whatever you wanna call it, but it bothers me. That we could get out there, go through the whole interview again, and then if it's, you know. What it is, that we end up in a position where we're having to go back to the sheriff's office, say, hey, I need you to do the IGA over again. We need that 18 hours of patrol coverage back, what are we gonna do? There is an easy button, which was not my term, but it was a term that was said to me with the sheriff's office. It is a faster upstart. To what I think people expect from law enforcement. But we do give up that aspect of town control a little bit.
But it wasn't that we didn't pick the right person for the job.
Exactly, we picked
And
that
there's the
person.
circumstances surrounding that were so outrageous that I don't think it could ever be duplicated,
One
thank
hopes.
God. So selecting that person wasn't it, and as we
Yeah,
know, in
exactly.
any situation, you know, the emotion and the drama is here for the moment. And then it peters off, and the outcry that we had during our selection process. And the turnout, which I think we were in some ways anticipating a similar response at our last meeting.
I was.
Yeah, I was.
And I think that shows how, you know, that the topic in a sense has diminished. I don't wanna say in the importance of it. My concern with the sheriff's office is this, I'll throw this out there, okay? I appreciate everything they've done for us. However, we know they were communicating with the businesses at the Upstart. And we don't seem to have that, and someone please correct me if I'm wrong. They don't seem to be in the community in that same way and in and out of the stores and having that touchy-feely moment that they were at Christmas market, where everybody loved them kind of thing, and they were popping in and out. The 18 hours a week, if you look at our invoices, I personally will have a struggle in maintaining that as a representative of the Board of Selectmen, when if they're here for that amount of time, the services that they're actually giving us, for the price that they're giving us compared to what they're charging us when they just respond on a 911 situation. They are going to be just as short-staffed, trying to get built up, you know, to add the additional personnel as we would be if we were to start up. I think if you look at our budget, we were terribly under budgeting and under financing, supporting our former police department. And that goes back to shame on us.
Yep.
As a town. Partly related to what the personnel were asking at the time. And that's a reflection of the type of department that we had compared to the type of department that we want. I agree, if you've got family in this town and kids and what, you know, we're lucky right now that your kid, I'm gonna pick on your kid,
Oh, fine, 'cause I-
can ride all over Georgetown and you feel perfectly safe doing that. And there were comments in here about, you know, how hard it is to staff in mountain communities. Well, then. Okay, let's go up to Idaho or Montana where there's no law enforcement and where we have all these pop-up cults. I'll tone down the term. And what's the situation there? And so how are we gonna be any different than that? Because I don't know if your kid is gonna be safe riding in our town, and I'm not trying to be,
Oh, no, I'm
you
not.
know, but I don't believe the sheriff's office can give us that kind of commitment that we could expect and that we would demand from our own police department.
Ellen, did you have a comment? Your hand.
I just wanted to know if there is an IGA, how often is it reviewed?
currently, we're kind of like running it on like a 60 to 90 day sort of cycle. We haven't really, that's, I mean,
You put in a longer term IGA, this is a temporary
the
IGA.
one that we're currently on is the temporary.
So if
and
you had
that's-
it, if we had a full, would review it once a year.
We would put that into the IGA.
That's fine.
I mean,
So-
yeah.
But
we-
that's the question,
that's
like,
the
what would that
terms
review
that
period be?
Board would decide with
Yeah.
our attorney and their attorney. And everyone would have to come to a conversation about, you know, I mean, I think when we did the first IGA, and you guys correct me if I miss something. We ratified it in like late October or early December, and that's right, it's December, and we asked for a 60-day review.
Okay.
Of how things were going, which put us into like February. And the sheriff's office comes to our meetings. Say every third meeting, like, it
Maybe.
feels like, I mean, it's not quite once a month, but it's,
So is
More.
60 days normal?
I mean, that's.
I've never
really-
dealt with an IGA, I can't tell you,
We were-
ask me about
No,
that.
We've been,
Milking it,
You can
absolutely.
set whatever-
we get to this point to make this decision.
So you can set the time when.
Whatever you want, it's an IGA.
If we come into the IGA and we're like, hey, we have to see A, B, and C. And that's the one thing, I do agree that there's definitely. Undoubtedly, we're gonna get probably more long-term personalized. Growth through our police department. I truly have concerns about our ability to start it up, to grow it, to hire it. To train it, staff and make it manifest.
So look at Empire and see, and make some comparisons with what they're getting from their small department. And they're getting the additional coverage from the sheriff's office. And yet, things can be more personally tended to in Empire through their police department. Because they have that personnel rather than relying on the sheriff's office. And I think long-term, sure, this isn't gonna, we're not gonna wave our. Magic wand and this is all gonna happen in 60 days, but I think that. Even though it's minimal. If Empire wanted to, build their force, they could. If Georgetown starts with that and builds that. I think the possibility, I wanna believe that the possibility is there for a professional police department. Couple of years down the line, sheriff's office is gonna have people come and go just as anybody else is gonna have people come and go. And we work cohesively and collaborate with them as the other department does.
You
So-
also have to add into that then, if you have your own, if Georgetown has its own police department. You have to add in an extensive cost increase. Because at that point, you would need a municipal judge, a clerk and court.
And a prosecutor.
And that was in the
I
budget.
believe that's the 20% rolling increase over the next 5 years, so it's reflected.
No,
in that.
just to back up, we had 66,000 in this year's budget. I don't know
Right.
how.
Cause if you think you're gonna get a judge for the cost of what the past two judges have been, you're not gonna get it. Right.
And we also have to replace a prosecutor who was doing it for.
And, you have to figure your court time, and you have to get a clerk and
Yeah.
all those things that are being handled right now, it's gonna be a large cost increase as we look at this.
But had we continued with our police department, we would have been experiencing that loss at some time anyway. Because the judges would have come to the conclusion at a point that they were going to be retiring. And we would have been faced with that regardless of whether we still were operating a police department. It's just one of the additional costs.
The reason that number is inconsequential for this discussion is that the county has already signaled to us if we sign this IDA, we're gonna have to pay them to do the county.
To
They
do
already
the
do
city.
The
Code
city.
enforcement, they will cover county.
You'll have to
the
switch,
state.
right, no,
But
they
then
don't,
if we had to do this private, we need to add our own, or add costs.
right, we'll have to add the cost for the county municipal operation.
Because she is now Judge Jones is now hearing, because all tickets are written by the sheriff's department, they're written.
Right, they're not charging us for that.
So right now, they're absorbing
But
the
we
cost.
will.
So either way, we're gonna be paying that cost, is what you're saying.
We're gonna
Go with
have
our
to-
underwriting.
The court costs will have to be now absorbed for when the sheriff's doing it, or whether we reinstitute our own municipal
Right,
judge.
okay,
And you're correct, it's not gonna be what was in the budget last year.
no,
And I talked to Tom today, it's gonna have to go up. So,
Wait, I lied, it was 31,000, so
Yeah.
you're worse, I said 66.
No, we didn't have
It was
that.
The
30.
overwhelming
I,
majority of people I've talked with, and I've talked with over 20 people, and only a couple of them are younger than, I would say, 40. But everybody that I've talked with says they want fiscal responsibility. And they're looking at, they don't want to pay any more taxes. Every single one of them, and I mean, just by these questionnaires that were put out, they're saying the same thing. So in a realistic world here, this is what it's gonna cost for four deputies and a police, or three deputies and a police chief.
these two.
I get it. I understand that, and I've brought that up to their attention. But overwhelmingly, they're asking for fiscally responsible government. I mean, hell, you can look at any news service, and it's pasted all over the news service. That's how people are feeling nowadays.
Mhm.
You know, and then this is a microcosm of the world we live in. And so overwhelmingly, they say they want a nice police chief. But, you know, they also want an imperial stormtrooper.
Yeah.
You know,
Having our own police department gives us more control over the costs than the county turning around and saying, excuse me, Georgetown, thank you very much. Next year's IGA is gonna cost us X amount of dollars because we have increasing costs, as we may experience too with Georgetown. And then we cut back in other ways where they're gonna turn around and say, here's the price this year. Here's the price next year.
Stuff isn't locked in for the first 5 starters anyway.
That's what.
So granted, it's going to
Right.
change, that's not even a question, it's going to change. But my understanding is this one's locked for 5 years.
with the
That's the
county.
big 63 with the county. And that's not an increasing cost for 5 years, that's a flat cost for the next 5
Right.
years. I know it will change after that, I'm not questioning, arguing, or even touching on based on that, I know it will change. But the one that was presented was 5 flat years, it's so 63.
Right. So one of the things I think that's overwhelming is people want service.
Yeah.
They wanna know their officers, who's coming around, who's going to school, are you going into the businesses? What are you doing? How do we know everybody? They also wanna have the cost is huge. So that's certainly something I've heard, you know, and I've said the same thing as Michael, no matter what we pick, it's not enough.
It's
to-
gonna go.
We're gonna have to find money somewhere to pay for whatever option it is. What I hear overwhelmingly is people want Georgetown to reconstitute its police force. And I don't know that everybody necessarily understands the complexity of that,
I don't think they care.
and they may not care, because it's an emotional decision. This is what we wanna have our own people, because as Mary's pointed out, and others have pointed out as well, what happens with the county? Are they really gonna show up? Are we really gonna have, you know, the kind of personal service that we want? Are we gonna have identified officers who we can say, oh yeah, these were our 3 guys? And during the week, that's what, you know, that's what's going on. So in terms of this body, what do we think is the option that best both serves the town and responds to people's concerns? Because that's going to be a really big factor. Cost is as well, but I think it's gonna be, how do we meet the community's desire? What is that? And what do we wanna recommend to the Board of Selectmen?
I will point out one thing that was interesting, because
Yes.
what you just said, with what you said, with everybody you talked to seems
Yes.
in favor of reconstituting. I would have to say, I don't think I talked to a single person that had interest in us doing our own
Mhm.
police over the sheriffs, as long as they got the same
Service.
things that they were
Yeah.
looking for, and that's when the cost questions started coming up. Well,
Right.
why would I pay more to do it on ours? We can do it there for less.
That's
Now
right.
granted, I'm talking to a slightly different group of people. I'm talking to
But that's
not
okay,
the same
because it all
board.
matters.
I have not heard from a single one of them no, let's do our own. Let's make everybody I've talked
Cost
to
is
is.
definitely the second factor.
So that, and the fact that the vast, a lot of people that I've talked to seem to feel the interrelatedness of having them run by the same set of people does take some of the challenging concerns that they have with the way that everything has each. I'm trying to find the right way to phrase this, but each department in the past seems to be running on their own things, doing their own things, which has caused us problems in emergency responses before, where it doesn't seem like the communication is there, it doesn't seem like the training styles are similar, that kind of a thing. And when that's been brought up, that's people's immediate go-to as well. If we do partner with that, then we at least know that everybody's, whether it's exactly the way we're wanting it right now, we all at least know what to expect out of each person that comes from this group of people that would be responding. So I don't know how much you want to take that into consideration, but that is definitely what I've been hearing, so.
I think it's worth noting, as we're having this conversation about budget, Empire's numbers have been hard to find and they're up now. So Empire's budget for 2025, with their very small department, is 450,500. And our budget for this year was 560. So we were $100,000 off Empire's estimate. And we have 1,000 more residents. So obviously, the disconnect in our budget is pretty prevalent. There's a chasm there. And so it is going to be more money. It's just simply not possible. We can't do it either way.
So then this cost override service, or do we think cost overrides, what do people want? What do you guys think? What are you hearing? What do people want?
Both ways in the notes.
Well,
Is cost more important? You know
well,
what I mean, in the decision?
what my fear is that we're gonna take 633,000 or whatever the figure's gonna be. We're gonna hire 4 officers. We know costs are gonna go up year to year.
Well, if we're talking Georgetown, it's 760.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's with the county.
And we're gonna have officers, unless they wanna move in here, unless they can make it work, unless they can do all this, we're gonna have attrition. Of people that are not gonna say are driving from Arvada or Lakewood or, and we know the cost of living down there too. Right, but they're gonna be coming up here, are they gonna be looking for the bigger, better deal? You know, what is the attrition? And if we've got, let's say we get 4 officers hired. Let's just hypothetically say we get 4 officers hired. They can't move up here, they can't be closer, or for whatever reason, they're dissatisfied. Have we thrown all this money away? Because all of a sudden now we're just down to a police chief again? Or maybe not even that, maybe just 1 officer like Gaskins.
So John, Mac, are you thinking that the county option is better in that regard?
I, tell you the truth, in my opinion, to tell you the truth, I'm really not supposed to put out my opinion. I'm only supposed to represent people that I talk with. That's the fact.
But you're
But
also.
in my
but
opinion
you're also member of
is-
This force, right?
The opinion is, people do want. They do want an Andy Griffith, they do want a John Gaskins, they do want somebody that they can talk with. They do want somebody they know, that's what they absolutely do want, but they also want. Not any more taxes, they want us to be fiscally responsible.
But you know-
And I don't know that we can have it both ways, so if we're gonna sit here and banter about, everybody here is one way or the other said, we can't have it both ways. But I think there's a way, if you reduce 1 officer, I don't know, but I don't know if that's even feasible, because even the sheriff says, if you've got to go all in or you can't go in at all.
Or those 3 officers that are gonna be dedicated to Georgetown actually get to know it.
So
That's the hope and.
One of the things I wanna throw out that I think was a massive misstep, and honestly, one of the biggest catastrophes of our last situation was the hysteria over a take-home vehicle. That is a common practice in every department on the planet. Empire chief takes his vehicle home. And the Idaho Springs chief takes his vehicle home. We cannot, the expectation that somebody has to be my neighbor to be the police chief is not a realistic or acceptable.
I just, I don't think.
We have to, we can say, hey, police chief, you need to live within a 30-minute response radius. We're not gonna do, if you heard, what Captain Rubin said, and I grew up in Denver, I grew up around a lot of Denver cops, my dad was a firefighter. And then ran a tow business later, so I have a lot of Denver cop relationships. Denver pulled their residency requirement for a very good reason.
Yeah.
You could not manage and people having to reside within the city and county of Denver and the Clear Creek deputies, none of them live up here. And they all make it to work. I mean, I'm assuming they all make it to work, and that's between them and the sheriff and the undersheriff, but we cannot, that's not what makes a police chief. It's not we're living in this town. Yes, but of course, it's getting to know the community and it's great if they live here. But that facet was so bananas, and I will never get behind keeping somebody, whether it's the sheriff's deputies we hire or our police chief. I'm not gonna dictate that as a selectman where they have to live. I won't.
You
That's
have to
unacceptable.
respect too their off time.
Yes,
And,
They need
and
off time.
there's good reason, even if you're required to live in your jurisdiction, there's good reason why you may not want to. Type of situation, you know, and you do want your days off, and you do want to be able to go wherever,
Yes.
you know, type of situation, so. It isn't something that everyone takes advantage of or doesn't just for that.
And state law
sometimes it's nice
actually-
to be able to turn it off and
Go away.
go home,
and
exactly.
state statute also caveats and protects the residents of law enforcement. That is private information. It cannot show up on a property record. It's kept. Anyone who's in, as I'm sure Ellen can attest, judges, police, people who are in these high profile positions, their addresses are supposed to be private for a reason to protect them.
Yeah.
It never, ever should have been an issue. And again, all of the sheriff's guys have take home vehicles. Yes, is that increasing taxes because they're putting wear and tear on their vehicles and there's mileage on the vehicles? Yes. But
It's a fact of
it's a
life.
fact.
And I think the other thing we have to look at is that the sheriff is looking at, and I don't ask you the letters. Like, I would say para, the,
Oh, the FFPA.
Yeah,
FFPA,
and
yeah.
they're looking at doing that, and if they do, that's a huge pull.
To them.
And I'd rather have para, which I have, but I mean, I'd rather have para than, somebody in the same town offer me a job that doesn't have. Yeah, para.
retirement, yeah.
And keep that in mind, if we're looking at redoing our own, is we're gonna be fighting that pull then. If they're adding that and if they're increasing those benefits on the sheriff's side, they're gonna be increasing that pull to anybody we can be trying to
In a public.
entice to work here. We're
especially
gonna have
in
to
a
fight with
public,
what they can offer.
I think the
employed
sheriff's
setting.
office is having a difficult time with the county right now in fulfilling that, even though it was.
Was about.
voted on, I know that, but it's not as smooth as it could be. And I'm not, I don't have the encyclopedia on that particular retirement fund, but that doesn't mean that that isn't something that if we find it desirable, that we are offering
Sure.
our officers, you know, the same piece to keep the incentives on par with what else is being offered in the area. Not just this county, but, you know, not, so that they're not, you know, going over the divide to Summit or whatever.
So I want to bring us back to one thing. So if we look at Dennis's draft memo, we look under recommendations. He's got 4 topics here: services, costs, viability, and timeline for implementation as possible topics of hierarchical concern in some way. If you look at viability, what's written there is that it's basically service and costs. And again, that's that balance that we're kind of dancing around all the time. So if we were to actually put these in a top priority order, it sounds to me like what I'm hearing is cost, service, and then timeline. Timeline's gonna be bad no matter which way we go, because even the sheriff's office, while they could move faster, had the same issue with hiring. We're certainly gonna have the same issue if we have to reconstitute our own police force. So me personally, I would put the timeline at the bottom because I think it's gonna be not overwhelmingly better one way or the other. But if we look at those services, costs, and viability, how would this group rate those? And Amanda, I'm gonna start with you and then we'll go around.
Okay, so services,
So if we look at services, costs, and viability as Dennis has laid them out here, how would we rate that? How would you do that? And we're just gonna
Like
go
for
around
each
and spitball
entity?
this.
for each entity,
Yes.
Which one would you put first?
How do you compare? Yeah.
How do you compare these, not for each entity necessarily, but how do you value those topics? Whether we're
So-
discussing the county
so-
or the Georgetown Police Department?
I would oh my goodness, right, prioritize
Okay,
service
yeah,
as
okay.
one. Cost is 1.5.
Okay, yeah, no, that's good, that's good. Yeah, yeah, and then
Um,
viability?
viability, as 3, 2, 3,
Yeah,
and timeline for implementation is 4.
So pretty much this order.
okay,
Yeah,
now,
pretty much the order.
Michael, I'm gonna go to you. We're just gonna do this real quick round robin. Okay, Michael.
Same thing, services and costs really are so intertwined that they're so similar, but I think overall, yeah, people are worried about services first.
And then
Cost would
cost,
be immediate,
and then viability?
yeah, viability and timeline, you can argue those on either side, people are
Right,
iffy on those, they know those are soft comments, they know those are soft statements that aren't real. But man, those services and that cost,
Okay.
that's where they're looking.
Ellen, how about you? Do we have
I'm gonna leave them right the way they are.
service cost viability timeline? Okay,
Yeah.
Matt,
Look at that.
So I have to put cost first because that's what everybody is saying to me. Cost, cost, cost. They are not willing to pay any more taxes. They, I mean, and you can see it in
Yeah,
this stuff.
No,
They're,
it's
they're,
true.
they just aren't
absolutely.
gonna, they're
That's right. So cost first, then service,
cost and service.
then viability, so just,
I just
okay,
have
and
to
then
put cost
bandwidth.
as number one.
Yeah, number one.
Yeah.
I'll stick with the order that they're in this memo.
Okay,
But I just wanna throw this out about the cost piece.
Think one or two are just like-
We asked the question if they would be willing
Two or-
to
From
pay
what I've
more
heard.
or to increase taxes
Right.
or whatever. But right now, that is not the way our police, or a year ago, that was not the way our department was funded. And it's just, I think the public just doesn't
that's right.
understand that or grasp that concept. So it doesn't mean that bringing in our own department is going to be an increase in that. Granted, we may be taking away from a different service within the town, but, you know.
It's not a
So-
tax increase necessarily. There's
Right.
not a straight line to that is what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Although
So-
at some point, we would maybe have to consider a mill.
Or to support the IGA with the sheriffs. So that we can
Either way.
afford,
either way, it's
There's
gonna
possibly we're
happen.
gonna have to consider.
Right, either way it's gonna happen. So, Rob is our audience member. So which- As we all look at the.
99 people there.
Aren't you glad it's out in the audience?
You
Yeah.
are representing
I'll
a
teach you
large
to
group
grow.
of citizens. So would you say service and then cost or cost and then service? How would you look at that?
Yeah, well, you know, Max said it best. Here, you know, I'm serving the constituency.
Yeah,
You know, and I know that I bet you 90% of the people who, if they were to come to me and then say something, I bet you cost would be one of the chief and, you know, I don't wanna pay anymore, you know, I don't wanna pay anymore, but yeah, when my stormtroopers arrive, you know,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
yeah.
They just, but I think when I talk about services, the optics are gonna be
That's my favorite word.
the optics.
No,
That's why I look at you whenever I say that. But it's the guy who's, you know, spinning the baton down the street, you know, hey, kids, how you doing? And playing basketball with them and, you know, those kind of moments that I think that's gonna go a long way with this town.
Right. Yeah, it's almost like they're flat
They're
together.
right like this.
Do we have anybody online? Dennis, can you tell, do we have Pete World on here?
No, I think people are like just casual, but I don't know if there's any comment they would type in the chat.
If they wanna participate.
Yeah,
they
do we
can
need,
certainly.
let's ask them if
They,
they
they
want.
can type, I think.
Do we
Should be
need
able
to
to.
get them in as a, what do we do, panelist or something, or how do we?
Well, they can hear if they want to unmute, they
They
can.
could unmute.
Or
They can unmute or they can type in a question.
Talk, but they should be able to type.
Okay, so anyone who is online, if you can hear us, please let us know if you would like to speak or make a comment or type your comment. We would be more than happy to read it out or hear you with your views and opinions on this discussion.
I don't think there's anybody
Or
on.
they wanna be anonymous and they just want.
Yeah, you can just type in whatever you want. Okay, so we'll wait and see what happens there. So, So we need to boil this down to how we want to approach the Board of Selectmen. And do we just, so do we just say, here you guys, here's two options, you figure it out? Or do we want to come to them and say, look, here's the way all of this is, because it's very flat. What I'm hearing is we have people on both sides of this aisle, and cost is absolutely magnificently important, which points us to the county at this juncture.
I'm just not the financial guru to go through this, but I really believe that you ought to, okay, what is the cost of, let's say, minimal operations?
Right, like if you had
Two
two
officers.
officers instead of three.
2 officers, what's that gonna cost?
Mhm.
What's 3 officers gonna cost? Well, I know we've got 4 officers here, and Dennis, you've lined it out. We can subtract whatever the annual salaries are, and we can find out what the cost of 3 officers is.
Right,
Keep in
And it's
mind that you're
also-
dropping a fourth off of your coverage that we're providing to the town, that was
I,
why.
I realize on that,
that's right.
but
So,
I mean, you've also got a duty to represent your constituents.
However, I wanna write this for a second, so we laying down an officer's salary. So we go to a chief and 2 officers.
Yeah,
And the halftime records clerk is kind of an imperative, that person has to exist. We would potentially have to be prepared for the county to say, well, we're still gonna charge you. If we're having to do, there's a difference between their statutory coverage that the state constitution requires of them. Versus okay, well, if we have to take a call because you're only have to, a week's worth of coverage, you only have 3 officers now, somebody's on vacation or somebody got hurt on the job or sick or whatever. This is where it's gonna be at the same rate we're currently paying, which is overtime. We pay time and a half.
But I think we have to anticipate that anyway, if they're gonna respond on and off, if we had a police department. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, we don't have an officer on duty and the county responds on a call. I think we're gonna see that charge anyway. I think we have opened the door for that with the IGA. I think it will be, I think there's grounds for us to have a big conversation with the county. I don't wanna be pooping on any of our surrounding communities. But I'm not sure all that is in place with other communities.
Well,
That-
because
but
we
I
asked them to go beyond their statutory obligation. If we had just said, hey, thanks, guys, can you just cover us? I don't think technically they would have.
so let's
So
talk,
we're not asking them to be here other than to respond, and there's a big difference. If you look at the invoices that we've received from them for responses, we're getting charged
Yeah.
just for a response compared to if there's somebody sitting here for 6 hours a day at a time and a half. We're getting the on-duty officer that comes over kind of thing. So if that's their statutory obligation to cover because there's no one in Georgetown at the time, that's a big difference.
so let me ask a quick question here. I'm sorry, Amanda, hang on
you're
a second. If we went down to 3 officers instead of 4, like a chief and then 2 instead of chief and then 3. Dennis, what does that do? I mean, obviously it affects the coverage, but does that put us in dire straits? Do we then have to lean on the county more? Or
Yeah.
how, and does that cost us? And how does that all
Let's
balance
boil
out?
this down
Yeah.
to the comparison.
Yeah,
So if you look at this chart,
yes,
an officer costs roughly, if I remember my presentation, it was roughly 84,000. So
Right
take
here.
84,000, is that what it says?
it says the chief would be
No.
182, yeah, and an
Control
officer,
officers.
each one is 90.
I thought it was
89.
84 something.
It's 89,764 times
So
3,
take 90,000 off the 770, what does that get you?
720,
I want
720,
No.
No. 690.
We're not math.
680.
here.
680, right?
Yeah,
Sure,
So
yes,
for now, the new comparison is you're paying more and getting less.
you're paying more and getting less, how is that?
You're paying 680 to have your own police department. You only have 2 officers. The county's less and you're getting more officers.
Cause they're offering 3 officers and
Wait.
started it for $660 a year is where he's.
Well, okay, so my assumption would be like if everybody goes down. then we all go down, but your point's well taken, hey, if we go down to 3, but they're offering us 4. Then yeah, we're gonna get more out
No,
of them,
they're doing 3,
Three, but one.
you're going down to 2
correct?
for more,
Yes,
more money.
and I get that, so, but here's my question, what I'm trying to say is. What are we giving up in terms of service and coverage when we lose that one patrol officer? Is it dire? In other words, is 3
I
the
think-
perfect number? 3 is the perfect number,
3's the minimum.
okay.
Cause you have how many hours that's gonna come, I think, I don't remember if it's on that sheet, and I don't have
It
that
was
directly in front of me, but it had
144,
how many hours of
Hundred and
cover.
44,
So you would have to divide that by 4 and cut a fourth of that out, and that's what we'd be losing.
right,
And it's
so in
not
other
that
words,
simple.
3 is the
It's not,
minimum,
in the end, it's not that simple, but you're cutting out that degree of coverage if we're dropping that extra.
3 is the minimum for optimal coverage.
Yeah.
That's what we know, that's why we
Well,
landed on that number.
3 is the minimum for minimal coverage.
3 is the
Not
minimum
optimal
for minimal.
Because you have people
That's
that have
important.
to take vacation time, they
Yeah.
get sick.
Yeah,
Your police chief has to do police chief work, he can't just wander around town and be a patrol officer all the time. So if you go down to 2 officers, you're significantly cutting into your patrol time. And your officers that you leave, they're on duty,
Mhm.
you're gonna wear them out faster,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a problem.
So-
Not trying to
No,
exaggerate this, but it's gonna be a problem. The bigger comparison to me is you are now paying more money for an inferior product compared to what the county is offering. So this comparison here is apples to apples.
yes. So here's my next question. If we were to, say, okay, 3 is the minimal number for minimal coverage. What did we have before? Is that what we had before? Was the chief and 3
Yep.
patrol
A
officers?
short period
the
of time.
four check, otherwise it was just 2.
It was just 2, okay.
Basically 2.
Normally
So-
2.
I
And
have-
people
I have
don't seem to
two
be
notes on-
satisfied with that. They like the people. But I mean, if you look at these responses, these responses, a lot of people weren't happy with that.
And
So I just wanted to get that in my own head. Thank you.
because the other thing is. If we are looking at this, where we would have to. Have a halftime records evidence. Whether that person be a police officer or a trained
Clerk.
lay person.
Mhm.
Theirs is already in place. In a secure evidence room. With investigators, with a public information staff who talks. To the press, right?
Yeah, public information officer, right?
When we talked about this at the last meeting. The staff that we have can handle those tasks,
Yeah,
and it's not going to be.
Take just putting more things in on our present staff.
Sure.
Yeah.
so wait, I wanna just, I'm sorry, Matt, go ahead.
I didn't have.
I think it's gonna be easier. In my personal experience, I think it'll be easier to hire an additional person. If you need to, say, hey, look, you know, we can't handle this. We can't handle the workload, people are burning out, blah, 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 blah. It's gonna be easier to say, we need another person, instead of saying, people looking at it and going, well. You had 2 officers, now you've got double that. And we're not seeing any great dramatic difference in coverage, but we are seeing a difference in your budget.
Mhm.
Okay, so if you went to 3 and said, well, you know, we're gonna try it out at 3, but we can't handle it at 3. Okay, then I think it's gonna be a lot simpler to be able to go to the selectmen and go to the constituents and the people of town and say, look. Our crime rates have risen. I-70 is gonna get wider. We're gonna get more people here. We all know that, we're all experiencing that. It's gonna be easier to go to the board, go to the taxpayers and hire an additional one. Than put this one on and explain to the constituents that we're not fiscally responsible.
Okay, and Mary, you were gonna say something, I'm sorry, I just wanna check on these handouts that you guys just got.
I just was told our invoices from the sheriff's office.
Okay.
Because I was curious about. How they were quantifying charging us for coverage on patrol, and just at a glance, it doesn't look to me like we're getting charged for calls. On patrol shifts,
Okay,
unless it's a deputy.
No, when they're assigned here, we're not.
Correct.
Because
So that,
we're paying them a time and a half, we're paying them for overtime.
correct,
What I'm saying though is when you break this down. That when you look at when responded and they're not on duty,
And we
the
can-
after hours call.
Yes, those are, and that's where I have concerns about.
Okay, so for April, here, just to
So,
talk about costs.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is oversimplifying it. In April, we paid $5,100 and some change for patrol services. They were here for 18 hours
a week,
a week per the IGA, okay, that was,
Yeah.
they were gonna be here whether there was a call or not. They were here for $5,100. They made, so they had 6 hours of patrol on however many days that ends up being. They made a couple of traffic stops, they made an arrest, they had a couple calls, okay. When they're not assigned here to Georgetown and they're not covering up for the IGA and they're just responding when there's a call, basically. We probably had at least twice as much activity for the cost of $1,300. So compared $5,100 for 18 hours of service and $1,300 for however many other hours, 22 hours of after hours calls. And they didn't really, and for 84 hours,
So they're charging us for.
they are charging us to
Right.
respond when they're not here,
Right,
after hours.
in April, we had, according to Jeff Com, 52 total calls for service. I don't know what the jail load is for that, I could extrapolate it pretty easily and tell you in a
so
second.
let's rise above this for 1 second, because I wanna respect our time. We're just after 4 o'clock. Does anybody need to leave? Matt, do you need to?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so let me just straw poll this. What do you think we should go to the Board of Selectmen with, the, private Georgetown, or do you think we should suggest the county, or do you have an?
No, I believe overwhelmingly the people I've talked with have voiced their opinion and said they want Georgetown's own private police force, that they feel that they have a voice and can talk with somebody like that. But overwhelmingly, they also say we need to be fiscally responsible.
Okay,
So, in my opinion, I think that we ought to start with 3 officers and go from there. It's gonna be a lot easier to justify than being over budget.
okay, thank you very much, I appreciate that, no, I appreciate it. Anybody else have to go, anybody else time restricted?
No, you don't, but I work side too.
Okay, so Michael, would you like to weigh in?
If we're looking at it from a fiscal consideration and with the information that I have been provided and provided to present to other people, I cannot see a way to recommend doing our own. Police force on a fiscal side, I have to go with the sheriff, with the information I've been given and with the focus on fiscal responsibility. I don't see a viable option other than that, so yes.
Thank you
Sure.
very much. Amanda, did you want to? I mean, we can stay and have a little bit more discussion. Alan, do you need to leave?
We can have another meeting.
I mean,
Do you?
What,
Yeah, what are we?
but we're gonna do this again.
No, we just have to, I think we just have to put our finger on the map now.
I'm not gonna write your recommendation for you and then run it off. I think you should at least look at the final product and say, yes, I'm willing to sign my name to this document.
Well, this
Were
document
these
was
not
in
the
need
final
for work.
products then though? 'Cause
Don't we need to pick one or the other
that's
here?
what I thought.
That's
But
what I'm
these
saying.
were-
Yeah, that's what I'm
You gotta have
saying.
one more, you have to have one more meeting, for you to at least look at the document and say, yes, I'm comfortable, or change this or
Oh,
not.
I see what you're saying,
Oh, okay.
like, we're gonna we give you some marching
So,
orders today.
and
then
I
we
see
can
you're over here.
Yeah.
Linda, you're,
No, no.
Amanda, do you have a preference, or right now, do you have an idea of how you would go to the Board of Selectmen?
If I was asked to vote today, I don't know, but I don't know.
Okay, and then Mary, how do you feel about it? Same question?
I think we're going to get a more quality service from our own police department.
Okay, and then Ellen, where are you? Anywhere, nowhere yet?
No, I don't.
Okay. And then I'm sort of weighing on the Georgetown side, but okay, so. it
I mean,
looks
I'd be
like
open to another meeting, but. Is it just gonna be this exact same thing again, where we're just throwing things up in the air constantly, but not actually?
Well, so here's the thing, one of the things I think we have to get really clear on is how do we want to go to the Board of Selectmen? Because we could go to the Board of Selectmen and say, hey, we have two options and this task force couldn't really land in either place.
It could be split, yeah.
We can absolutely do that, because right now we're split.
Yeah,
I think there's some unanswered questions and there's some conclusions flying around this room that are not conclusions that should be talked about, like new taxes. We're not talking about new taxes,
No,
that's off the table.
right, but
So-
nobody's talking about that.
I see.
Yes, it has been
Well, it has been,
fiscal responsibility.
His tax.
The definition of fiscal responsibility is responsibly spending the money, not cutting taxes or.
no,
you know
but
what
I,
mean?
but I think the way it's being voiced, the way I'm hearing it. Is people wanna make sure that whatever money we're spending, we're not overspending and we just are being conscientious about what's happening. Also, the way I hear it is if one option is, you know, higher and the second option is lower, but they're completely equal in all other ways. People want the lower cost option.
So we asked that
That's
question
fine.
on the survey.
That's right.
Would you be willing to pay more in taxes to reestablish the Georgetown Police Department? So there's a conclusion that people are going to jump to
Yes.
in reading that question, though it doesn't necessarily equate to, oh, in order to have a police department,
We have to have.
we have to raise more taxes.
So,
I
so I
also
think,
think we have to talk to you about, yes, is it possible that there is not direct and immediate taxation hits coming to our stakeholders, 100%, but we have other things that are pretty pressing. We have pretty tough infrastructure with our roads.
Yeah.
That is, we have equipment that is aging out completely. We have obviously, you know, like this water study that's been hanging over our heads and we don't know what we're gonna have to invest into the water department.
right,
Grant.
but so, but
But no,
again.
I mean, I'm just saying like,
Yeah.
it's easy to be like, yeah, we're not gonna raise taxes, but do people understand that it could mean that your road's gonna go another couple of years without getting appropriate drainage?
So if we just
We
look at
have
the police force question, if you just look at the police question. One of the things we're hearing from people is, oh, I don't really wanna spend more money, but here's what I want for my police force. So I think if we put these these options out there, what do we think people are gonna say? Oh, no, we wanna go with the county, because that is the easy button. Or are people gonna say, no, we don't care if it is a little more expensive, we really wanna do Georgetown? And if that's the horns of the dilemma that I'm on, because I can see both sides of that equation. And again, I'm wondering if we go to the Board of Selectmen and just say, hey, these are the two options, board, and. You know, we're
We're facing
really,
a situation with the county sheriffs right now that
yeah,
we're trying to collaborate on, and that's Guanella Pass. And we know this is coming up in the next couple of months.
yeah,
And that county sheriff's office gets their marching orders ultimately from the county government. And they're gonna put their needs first. We have needs in that same situation that we're still trying to work through. And when you're trying to level the playing field and you're trying to talk law enforcement, where is the county sheriff's gonna side? So how are we going to address our short-term, long-term law enforcement situations if we are deferring to an organization that we just contract with? And they don't really receive their ultimate marching orders from us.
I feel better about that statement, you've made my mind. Because maybe it's because I'm lacking sleep, but I'm feeling like the conversations about what do the people want? Cause I don't know if that's your charge as a task force, you're supposed to help the board sift
Right,
through
make-
facts
right.
and analysis. And I also am tired of this Andy Griffith comparison, because the people I'm talking with in the community about it, they don't even recognize the names of the people that work for the police department before this all blew up. I'm
That's
throwing out
right.
names and they go, who, what?
yeah,
And so this is an illusion about this folksy police department that used to be, you know, holding hands with everybody, that doesn't exist. And the other thing is that, yeah, I think that you have to come to this realization that everything's fine and folksy as long as there's not a shooting.
Yeah.
And when things go wrong in this town, who do you want? You want the police officer that's your friend? Who doesn't know the right side of a gun? Or you wanna know the military guy that's been trained A to Z, that doesn't care what the name of your kid is, but knows how to take care of business? And I would argue the last part, the last one, you know? And if it's a less expensive option, to me, that's the slam dunk decision to be made. So that's my 2 cents. If this town decides that they wanna take the level, basic level that I'm recommending down to 2 officers and give it a try, I'm warning you that that's a recipe for disaster. And if we wanna take this chart and you wanna pick one or the other, and the board says, I agree with your recommendations, one or the other, I'm all in, I'll make it happen, but if you say, let's water this one down and just get by because we wanna save a buck, it's gonna.
I don't think that's a viable option personally.
I'm insulted to think that a local police department would have the reference of Barney Fife or Annie Griffith. And
Right,
half the people that live here don't have that
that's right,
knowledge of those names either, because it's not their generation kind of thing.
that's right.
The county sheriff's office over the last couple of years has tried to involve Georgetown Police, when we existed as a police department, in their training. They include Idaho Springs, they include Empire. There is a countywide training opportunity. Those that were members of the Georgetown Police Department did not take advantage of that, and unfortunately, staff and the Board of Selectmen didn't take the right action at the right time in that sense. So from a training standpoint, I think we could have we will have qualified police officers and a police chief making those decisions, working collaboratively with the county under the same training. It makes sense for them all to be on the same page and responding in very similar fashion. Idaho Springs is gonna respond just as much so as the county sheriffs or Georgetown, and everybody wears a different uniform. And yet it's the thought and the initial training, even their post-training, when they go to the academy, it is very policy and procedure oriented. The fact that we didn't have it and we're in this shitstorm now is what we are trying to rectify.
Right.
It was a lack of leadership.
It was a horrible,
And the
horrible
position
lack
that
of
I am in
leadership.
right now.
Exactly.
The position that I am in was the lack of leadership that could have avoided a lot of this stuff.
And so I don't think it's political to have our own police department. I don't think the chief is gonna be at anyone's beck and call and feel that they absolutely have to be, responsive in the correct political way. It's the right way to do law enforcement operations for Georgetown.
So. Do we
Okay.
have if we look at this one more time, just last time, are we for Georgetown? I think we have a Georgetown, we have a not Georgetown, we have a county, we don't know, do you feel any differently?
He's a fence.
No, honestly, my concern is leadership. That's the thing that where I keep pivoting back to the sheriff's office, it is a comfort level for me of
Yeah.
being like
What's your?
I really think Matt has a good handle on the county.
And
And I understand Matt's a politician, like I understand he's elected, he's got, his skin in the game is as, different than a hired police chief. They're different entities. But I think that it's really hard to think about going out and doing that again, like I said earlier, and we still have factors of negativity. That's why people didn't show up to our meeting. It's
That's
not
what I
because they didn't care, it's because they're like, the board doesn't care what you think.
That's what
They're just gonna do whatever they want. We don't even care because you guys didn't listen to us the last time.
Right.
And unfortunately, I will stand by that vote until the day I die. I voted how I needed to vote, and it was the right vote, and I will never, ever apologize for how I voted in the last year.
Bless you.
Thank you.
So I have a concern that we're gonna run back out and do this whole thing over again. And then it's gonna be like, we're right back here. And we could try and it could be okay, But at that point, have we further eroded community safety?
Right.
Have we made it so that, you know, our Sixth Street merchants in particular,
you.
they feel kind of, you know, I don't know what the word, they don't feel like they're being looked out for, I guess would be the right.
So for you, it's the county then, is what I'm really hearing, as a safer choice. Ellen, do you
But I
have?
want the people to have service, so I
No,
I
I
know this is not
understand.
making me a good selectman right now,
No, I
because
don't,
I need to like.
you're not a
pick
selectman, you're on a
lane.
task force.
Yes.
What I'm hearing is control, and I like that because you're pinning it on control. I'm hearing professional,
Right. That would
and
be.
so
But we had viable candidates when we
Yeah.
went through the process
He's great candidate.
for a chief of police. We selected,
Hired a really good guy.
we did,
It's
and
amazing.
so all this other things that happened, if that was a person that was here right now, obviously we wouldn't be having this conversation, but
No.
we had faith in the selection that we had.
Yeah.
So it wasn't as if we went through the process and didn't see any viable candidates for Georgetown. We had the right Georgetown fit. After he left, I called up Matt Harris, I called up the chief in Idaho Springs, because I wanted, again, their take on whether we were really losing this opportunity. And they too said, this was the guy for this job in this town. And so they recognize the value and the credentials and the professionalism and the control that Georgetown would have had with that. And then life went south. So we did have the opportunity to have the right people, and so we have the chief. And here we are right now, all on a level playing field. We're all laymen trying to talk about how to put a police department together. And that's almost where it's not almost where we need a police chief to say, this is what your police department is gonna look like. And Dennis, you know what? You really need to go back to the board and say, 3 people aren't gonna cut it, because eventually we're gonna need this extra, because we've got more and more,
Right.
people
Right.
moving into our community.
No, it has to be.
So,
So,
but we have to rely on the person who has that professional stance.
Yeah.
right,
Dennis has got a lot in municipal government, but he's not top guy. We're not hiring him as the police chief.
no,
And we're putting a heavy burden on him to say,
Correct.
how are we gonna do this? We can crunch numbers and say, yeah, this is what it's gonna cost, but when it all lays out, and then if we were comparing, if we had those two, would we be saying, oh no, we're gonna pull our police department and go with the sheriff's office because we don't think that this is the type of service that we want?
so Ellen, I'm gonna move to you really quick. Are you county, or you were kind of a question before? Do you feel more one way
I
or the
think-
other?
If I put it down and I talk to people about service, yes, and cost, yes. And I really think. That's why I asked the question about the IGA, how long does it take? Can we say, okay, we go with the IGA for whatever our first time is, 2 years, 3 years, and see where we get with it?
So you're county,
Yes, and if,
I wanted to answer your question, Ellen. I would treat the IGA as if it was a department head. So the IGA might have a minimum reporting recommendation that the sheriff has to come before the board of selectmen quarterly to give a report.
okay,
But I'm gonna talk to the sheriff weekly and say, what's going on in my community, and do you have anything to report? And they'll say, oh yeah, we were over at Michael's house, and he's got domestic calls every 2 days, and so we had to. You know what I mean? So I need to know what's going on there, because he's reporting to me, whether it's under a contract or whether it's a police chief. I have to know what's happening with the people that are in the community, and I have to remind them. Listen, we have community policing as a top priority under your contract, and I don't see any of your deputies out. You need to reemphasize that this is a priority. That's the kind of interaction that has to happen, and it's not gonna just wait every 3 months. It's gonna have to happen all the time.
more often. So do we have Peter online by any chance?
I don't
Do we-
think so.
do we
He
get
hasn't.
anything?
so.
Okay, so we do want him to weigh in, so here's what I'm gonna suggest, at
Probably.
4:20, I'm gonna suggest that we're split. We're just absolutely split right down the middle. So we either go to the board with the split,
I think that's what we do. The
And-
task
and
force is supposed to make a recommendation, and if we really are divided, and ultimately, we could even make a recommendation, and theoretically, the board could say, okay, but we're gonna do this instead.
Right.
So,
Sure.
which I think is
So-
important, and that's gonna be at a public meeting.
So maybe,
What I'm gonna do is
Yeah.
write the recommendation.
Yes,
And I'm gonna write the recommendation, and I'm going to focus it on control. And I'm gonna focus it on professionalism and cost savings.
and this is
And
a
then-
great tool for.
Is everybody agreeable to that? And I'm
Yes,
going to start.
well, following this format that you
Yes.
have.
we're probably gonna need to do like a work session, I would imagine,
I'm
Oh,
gonna,
yeah.
I'm gonna say
Like,
that,
like 10 work sessions. It's not gonna, yeah.
But
no,
It looks exciting.
You mean as the-
Yeah.
you're talking about the board,
Facetious.
Amanda.
Yeah, I'm talking about the board.
Okay.
when I send this out to you.
Yeah.
If you look at it and it's you nailed it, Dennis, let's go, let's move on, send that to me, and if everybody agrees, then we're all set. And
Then we
I
have
can
a
put that on the agenda for the board, they can accept it, and then they can decide where to go. But if somebody has hey, I would really be more comfortable if we had one more half-hour chat about this, then I'll pull you all about when you get together and we get together. Is that fair?
It's totally fair. I think that we're gonna be split, and I think it's fair to go to the board. My opinion is, my view is that it's fair to go to the board with this. Hey, we've looked at this, we're really,
I just wanna,
we're 50-50.
I just wanna fairly.
Sure.
Explain it on here so that
Of
everybody's
course.
comfortable with the way it's described.
And so you'll shoot that our way and then just respond back with a yay or a hey, yes, but with addendums, send it in?
Yes.
Gotcha.
All right, so it's 4:21. I'm gonna call the meeting adjourned, and Dennis will look to you, but thank you, everybody, for
Thank you.
staying. That
Thank
was,
you.
really
Really
good.
for this tomorrow.
Oh, come on.
Oh, come on.